So good morning, folks. My name is Amarpreet Kalkat. I run product and business at Frol. We're a social data intelligence company. So Ashish called me before this. He said, why don't you come, you've struggled a good bit over the last 3 years, got to some point. No success yet, I would say beginning to succeed. Why don't you come share some of your lessons, maybe, or share your story. People will pick up the lessons themselves. And I said, yeah, sure, why not? I was thinking, let me go and say something, or try to say something different, something profound, make it more valuable for you. I don't think that works. I'm just going to share the biggest things that I have probably learned, probably observed. I'll let you take your pick. Like Suresh said, some of these would be reinforcements. You know them already. If you're new to this, maybe it'll set kind of something saying, oh, this is something I need to be careful about. So hopefully I'll try to make it a little interesting for you. Quick summary before I get started. I was the only full-time founder. I had a couple of co-founders who were part-time. They didn't last very long, couple of months, 6 months, 8 months. Then I spent a bunch of months just by myself before I found my current team, and we'll get to that. We started with something really large. We said, okay, let's go. We started with a consumer news application. Some of you would know Frol. We said, let's go and, Google News. Whoa, Google News, 100 million users. Let's go build something better. 2 people, doesn't really matter. We'll just go build something better. So it was really large goal. We got some money early on, and a year or so later, we got some money. It wasn't the kind of money at the kind of terms we would have liked to take. We said, show it, we'll see. Started making a bit of money. That pretty much helped, rope in, my co-founders now, Nishit, Abhishek, they're not here. We've got, something going on today. That really started changing the tide. I'll come to that in a little bit. And we shifted priorities. So Ashish was saying, look, you've pivoted multiple times, talk about that. And I'm thinking, I don't think we've pivoted really. Well, we have at some level. But it's more been just kind of fine-tuning, getting to the right spot. I think when I went full-time in the entrepreneur kind of a mode, there were 3 products I was kind of playing around with, thinking, let me see which is the best one, that I really want to work on, which has really got potential. So Frol ended up being that. We had a B2B kind of a plan in mind pretty much from the day one. I think my first presentation, I was saying, this is what we're going to do later on. This is where we'll make money. We're not going to look at ad-based models for a consumer product. We ended up shifting those priorities a little later on. We wanted to do the consumer thing. We just did not get enough support. And we ended up kind of saying, okay, let's go after B2B. Let's become sustainable. Let's build a business. Then we'll think about doing all the cool things, building all the good stuff. And we've got a bit of traction. You might have seen us in action on Arnab Goswami's show, Rahul Kanwal, a bunch of other things. We've done a lot of work this election season. It's beginning to kind of pick up, build on itself. So hopefully you'll see more of us around starting with media, then maybe in retail, etc. So now let me just kind of move on from here. Some of the observations, some of the interesting things that happened along the way. Everybody knows this one. Oh, Amarpreet, this is really cool technology. Now, how much money do you really make? That's primarily investors I'm talking about. People here care about money. Even if it's pennies, people care about money. They want to see some money. They're not, in general, they're not. There are very few guys. There's some guys who'll say, this is cool, let's do it. Let's take a shot. Let's try building something world-class. But world-class is very secondary. Cool technology is very secondary. Let's build India, Bangalore, Delhi as a technology. Power is very secondary. Show me the money. People like to see money. You know this pretty well. Now, all the Gyan gurus, Ashish talked about that. Oh, your data analytics, but people have been doing that for 15 years. Oh, I know 3 companies that packed up last year. This is a really tough market. People will tell you that. Nobody knows about what you're doing, about the really, really key things that make all the difference. Nobody knows them as much as you do. You know your product the best. Nobody else does. This is my favorite. Vitamin versus painkiller. So I've heard that a lot, especially in the Frol context. This is not a painkiller. This is just a vitamin. It's a nice to have. Why would people pay money for this thing? Comes along all the time. I keep thinking. I think a lot of good things start out as vitamins. I mean, back in the day when there was no electricity probably, and somebody said, oh, there's going to be this thing. It'll have light. And somebody would have said, oh, but there's already light. We can light a fire. Why do you need electricity? There'll be so many wires all around. It's going to make it all messy. The animals are going to go and bump into them. Cars, why do we need cars? They're horses, they move well enough. Roads, why do we need roads? I mean, the horse can just go anywhere. Why do we need a road, really? TV, why do you need a TV? TV would be such a nice to have. Why can you live without TV today? A refrigerator, why the hell do you need a refrigerator? So this is my favorite, really. Yeah, don't listen to these people. You know your product. So, yeah. So I've had that number's a favorite one of mine. I've had that number. See, I'll take 37% of your company. I don't make transactional decisions in the first place. My primary axis of decision making is conceptual. It's the right thing to do, feels like the right thing to do, I'll do it. Wrong thing to do, screw it, We'll see. We'll live to fight another battle. This didn't seem right. So yeah, I wouldn't mind optimizing transactionally if I could, but not at the cost of right versus wrong. Stubborn, I guess. So these are some of the things that worked for us. Now, Ashish made a point, and I believe in that. I felt nice. He said, don't get into the shoulds. There are no shoulds. So I'm kind of trying to stick to our story, what happened, what we saw, what worked for us. You take your pick from here. For me, this was the big one that worked. As I said, unfortunately, in our case, we weren't like a team of 3 or 5 starting out. Had some people who thought they could join, they could not. They have their priorities. So my co-founders, as I said, Nishit, Sharma, Abhishek, so they joined around January last year, a year and a half after, I'd been kind of doing what we are trying to do now. And that's made all the difference. We've really started rolling post that. If you're somebody looking at starting your own startup, in hindsight, I'll go back, spend 3 months, 4 months, maybe not 6 months, but definitely a significant amount of time first putting a team in place. I won't try to optimize equity saying I'll have more of it. I would ideally want to say, okay, let's put a team of 3 people. 3 is my favorite number in that sense. Equal equity, equal this. Idea doesn't matter. Prototype doesn't really matter. Your little bit of traction doesn't really matter. You just want to have people who are so bought into this thing, that it's their own baby. At least 3 to 5 such people. So that worked for us really, really big time. Having a plan B kind of worked. As I said, we started making what would be called, a decent or a reasonable bit of money, or we raised money almost 3 years after I started this. By my personal savings, I wouldn't have sustained. So, plan B is good. Like, I used to work at a company that used to pay pretty good money, and after a year and a half, when I was almost running out of money, I took up a 10 hours a week kind of a consulting gig with them that paid well. That kept us afloat before we really started making some kind of a plan B. Typically, it ends up taking longer. At least in our case, it definitely did. Many other people I know than you think. I'll give it 1 year. It's probably going to take 2 years. I'm going to give it 2 years. It's probably going to take 3 years. So just have some kind of a plan B, in place. Otherwise, you'll end up giving up. This worked. We're doing a consumer news application, but we were kind of very keenly observing what was going on in the US market. What were people doing with our kind of a technology? What kind of a product on the business side was really working for them? What was Twitter interested in? We primarily a Twitter-based product at this point of time. What really kind of aligns with them? And that's what turned the tide for us. Last April, I was in San Francisco, got introduced to Twitter. They were trying to do something in India. It really, really fit well. And today, the Twitter partnership has played a significant part in the way that we've grown over the last 6-7 months now. So focus is one of my favorite things, but kind of it's a 90-10 thing. I'll want to keep a little bit of, my eyes, ears open, what's really going around, around what could work. I think that's, again, that. But then again, I think this kind of did a big part of the trick. There's 1,000 things that come along, the way, 1,000 challenges. I think it's ultimately conviction-driven has to be the way. It's maybe again goes back to non-transactional way of thinking. To me, if it's generating value, right, if I am convinced, I think I'm the smartest guy in the room, I'm open to be convinced otherwise, absolutely. But if I'm not convinced, I'm not listening to you, right? So it's a conviction-driven thing. That's exactly what I believe in. And persistence, I mean, it's all about that. I think the last bit, I'll say, finally we got lucky. The last, as I said, elections ended up being a lot of kind of a trigger for us that's worked very well, and it's now leading to bigger things. But that luck took a good time coming. It took almost 2.5, 3 years coming, but it did play a part. So that's pretty much Troll. That's some some parts of our journey. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Hi. Amar.
Hi.
Hi. The pivot you were talking about, changing of priorities, was that conscious or you realized it after it happened?
Sorry, what was that?
The pivot, the changing of priorities that you were
Yeah.
talking about. Did it happen consciously or you realized it after it happened?
No, it was a conscious decision.
Okay.
In the sense, like I said, we always said, look, the value we're building is making sense of the social web. We're going to use it for a consumer news application for XYZ reasons, but we'll take it to enterprises, who basically need this value generated for them. So, and around February 2013, I told you I went to US. That was kind of the last shot at the consumer application. We thought we were going to give it our best. So 31st March was the deadline, saying if on 31st March we're not looking good with the consumer product, 1st April, we're going to start focusing on B2B. Let's go start making some money, and then we'll see the rest. So it was a conscious decision, and that's what we did the last 1 year now.
And any big plans for the World Cup coming up?
Yeah, we're doing a bunch of stuff. So starting today, if you watch 10 Sports Champions League final, you'll probably see us in action if 10 Sports guys don't screw it up. But World Cup also, we're working with a bunch of media companies, a lot of things going on.
Good job.
Thank you.